Users. I just thought I'd take a second and show one way that you can create fascia for your models. And this is kind of a multi-tiered fascia. I've started off with a profile. I've actually created several profiles. Let me bring up one. I'll kind of show you what I'm using here. I've got two screens, so you'll see me go and drag things here and there. But for the sake of this, I'm going to show you some custom profiles. So what I've created is well, this one has a 3-tier fascia. I've given them each individual names, and this is to show you kind of what they look like. And so basically I've got a 2x10, a 2x8, and a 1x6 stacked together to create a fascia board. And then I've done several different pitches. I've got, I think, three different pitches on this roof. I've got a 412, a 612, and one that's kind of an oddball 9.5 12. But each one of those has their own pitch. And those is what I'm using to create this fascia stack. I've chosen the anchor point as the outside of eave, so you can see that there. And the nice thing about these things, if I need to go back and adjust that later to move this in or out, I can adjust the profile and then it'll change the model universally anywhere I've got that located. So it's kind of a bonus um, in most cases. But let's take a look at the model here again. Go back to the model, and you can see I've got some of it done, and, and 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 obviously there's a lot of cleanup that needs to happen. I was just asked to reduce the roof pitches by 1 inch per foot. We're trying to lower the overall height of the building because it's in a scenic corridor. Um, anyway, but what we're doing, back to the fascia, is this is that triple stack, and I've just made this model white because it's a lot easier to focus on the lines when you're doing that. So you can see this one here hasn't been trimmed yet. The roof is extruding through, and what I'm doing is I can take the beam is what I've done is created those as a beam, and then using the beam tool, I can select that. I'm going to go ahead and do a group of them, and there's my beam. It doesn't really matter which one I use because I'm going to have to adjust them anyway. But you can see the segment right now. I've got vertical fascia stack set. So I'm going to start back here, pick a point, and then I'm just going to start bringing that around. And for some reason, for this reason, it's counterclockwise, but I can go point to point with that. And here we have kind of an odd thing where the roof will join at a different angle, and I'm actually going to run this right behind lower pitches. I mean, when you have different angles and they merge, it's never a pretty thing, but it can't be built pretty either. So you have to come up with a solution in your model. Come up with a solution in your model. Either I'm going to extend that eave so that comes out, or I'm just going to treat it as a different unit. I think for right now, I'll just treat it as a different unit. So let's just click there. Okay, and then you can go see I've got vertical everywhere. One thing I do is once I create a bunch like that, I'll undo and then redo, and then I'm going to group those. Just groups make everything easier. Um, and then as the group, I'm going to take that group. I'm going to use a solid element operation right here. I'm going to use that as my operator. Um, use the roof as my target, and then subtract with downward extrusion, execute, and that'll clean up that roof trim. Now I've got to go back, and I know this roof is 9.5 and 12, and so I know that this and this beam fascia will need to be a 9.5 and 12. So I go up here, I can change that to the 9.5, 12 fascia stack, and then look, it trims up just nice and tidy. Um, Once again mentioned here, and this will probably take a little bit more modeling down the road, but I'll create this little group doing the same thing. So I'm going to take and extrude a path. Now you notice if I have an angle set on these, that's not the one. Segment beam. Yeah, if I've got this, I come back, it grays out the continuous point-to-point application. So I'm just going to start off with the flat like that, and doing that, then it'll let me incline in the model. It's a great way to do it. Sometimes it's a little awkward, building in the model, but it's very handy when you need to do it, and if you're used to doing it. Whoopsie, I didn't group that, which is not a huge deal. I mean, I could still pick and point, but I like using uh, continuous points and groups when I can. So let's do that, and I'll end that right there. Um, so this is going to be that 9 and 12. This is 6 and 12. And then I'm going to miter. I'm using a keypad. I've been old school, and the keyboard shortcuts I've kept since probably version 7. So don't mind me, but I'm just going to do a quick trim there. You see all that, how it's coming together. And then I didn't group that. It's only 2 elements, so it's not a big deal, but I want to select it because I want to be able to add as operator. Select these 2 roof planes, add as target, subtraction with downward extrusion, execute. And then here's where you end up with that strange miter. In reality, you just can't take 2 boards at 2 different angles and end up with the same vertical arrangement. So I'm just gonna take this, and I'm gonna go right over to the side of the house. Let me find my wall point there. Something like that. And then you can see that goes under there. You got a similar situation over on this side too. So, and that's just where you as a designer have to understand that, pretty much what you can do in this model and what they can do in reality, it's going to be similar, so you're going to have to treat that and handle that. It's like I've got a wall here that's just a little bit short. So I'll extend that up a little bit. I get the right handle. Sometimes that's tricky. There we go. Okay, it's always fun to watch another person bumble around in their own model, isn't it? There we go. Now I can stretch it up to where it miters. I'm going to have a soffit in here. And here's kind of what I was talking about with the opportunities with solid element operations, or I'm sorry, with complex profiles, is you can add things later on. For example, if I want to add a soffit to that, I can select it, go to too much stuff selected. Again, this is workflow 101. Edit, select complex more profile. And now I can simply add a soffit by creating, I can probably even use the same fill, and I can change it later if I want to, but I'm just going to use this guy here. I'm going to move the relocation of it, but it's easy to have a snap point. And let's make it 1/2 inch. And then let's just extrude. Let's go up 18 inches. And I might have to adjust that later, but that's not a big deal. Get my pen weight set. Listen, guys, I am always learning, and I've been learning for 30 years Archicad. And you use what you use in this program. I'll say it over and over. It's like your brain. If you're doing a certain task, you use a certain portion of it. We'll probably never use all of it. I've done a lot of different things here. I draft for an engineering firm and do a lot of different stuff. Let me save out of this. So I use a lot of different types and tools in the project, and every once in a while I'll move on to something new. But the basics are basic. Let's just keep it that way. And there's more than one ways to skin a cat always. So I'm going to keep that there. It'll probably intersect the wall and dirty up the model a little bit, but right now it's fine. I can clean it up later or now if I need to. There's just, you have to work with your workflow. Of course, the cleaner, the more accurate I can create this at the time of creation, the easier it's going to be in the end result when I start documentation. So keep that in mind. But as everything you do in basically in life, but I learned in art school is general to specific. You get your masses down and then you work towards your details. And so that's what we do in design as well. We go the general to specific, and this is still, yes, a little bit detailed, but it's somewhat general. So let me save out of that. Got that. Let's go back to the view that we just had and see how it changed that. And so, did something wrong. Yes, so you can see what happened there. Well, this one doesn't have a soffit and this one does, so it just kind of overrode that and made that difference. But you can see the soffit. And there's other ways to do this too. I can just use a roof plane to create that soffit. But let's go ahead and just see what happens here when I change this profile as well. So edit complex profile. And I'm basically, I shouldn't have that text there, it doesn't matter, but extra lines. Working sloppy there. Now when I zoom full, it goes zoom full. So let's just do the same thing here. I'm just going to create, let's go 1/2 inch. And 18 inches this way. It'll need to be changed, and then go up. I think I went up 3/4. If not, it'll show me. And of course, I can always come back over and just check it there too. But let's see what it does here. And honestly, this is kind of a thing I would usually never do, is show you something without knowing the end result. But sometimes you got to go on faith. So, and in that case, it kind of panned out. I've got a little trim to do, but for the most part, you're ending up with something, and in the overall model, that's not even going to be noticeable. Obviously, this soffit's going to need to extend, back to there, and usually the one that shoots below is the one that I want to run out, but we've got, over here, this one shoots below this, and so you've got two different situations. And I could pull that forward, this whole eave length, then I got to detail it and dimension it, but in plan view, so the architect sees what I'm doing. But I'd like those to be, just right up tight with each other. Sorry for the over zooming. Anyway, so that's just one more way to do something. For this exercise, I really don't want to put a soffit in there, so I'll go back and just change that. But I just kind of wanted to share that. And this is seems like the more complexity of the model, the more troublesome these things can be. But it's a great way to start. And I'll probably do some other videos on how I use profiles in the initial setup of a project. Something that I've learned years ago working with an architect in Tallahassee, Florida, that worked out really well. Not in every case. It's just everything comes back to application, and so you've always got to be mindful of what the end use is going to be. So, but I do like complex profiles, and the beam tool for eaves is really handy. And like I say, I don't know how anybody could say I've been using this software for over 20 years and I'm still a novice. So it doesn't speak highly about me. But there's one of the tools in my toolbox that I can use quite a bit. And in the end, it does look nice. It's I don't know. It's like a Swiss Army knife. Not to bash a Swiss Army knife, but anytime you find a tool that does something well, doesn't mean it does everything well. Even though it might be able to be used in a lot of situation. I don't know if you've ever used the scissors on a Swiss Army knife, but they have their place. But there you have it. So every tool has a place, and this is where I'm using this tool. This is my place. If it helps you, great. If not, um, I'm gonna I'm gonna keep these videos coming. So very little editing. They're gonna be a little rough, but hopefully it helps you out in your workflow. So like, subscribe if you feel like it. I'm just doing this to give back because I've learned a lot from the community and user groups, and so this is a great way to do that. And if I could help out a fellow draftsman, architect, designer, or anyone that's using Archicad, I'm happy to do that. Okay, well, thank you, and I hope that helps in some way or opens up another possibility for you. Have a good day.